I think it's just not getting discussed in the national media enough, and that is Devin Booker. Of course, no KD, no Bradley Beal, and this team is coming off of one of its worst season finishes in the last 2 to 3 years. And so the Phoenix Suns are not being discussed very much. You pair that with the fact that Dylan Brooks, who they acquired in the Kevin Durant trade, was on the bench this last game or two due to injury. Jalen Green has yet to make his season debut for the Phoenix Suns due to injury as well. The Suns are just not being discussed very much, despite the fact that Devin Booker is an absolute beast. Despite coming off this loss to the Golden State Warriors, 38 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists in this game. And he is somebody who has just been really effective on the offensive end, taking over that point guard position in a more optimized role next to guys that don't need the ball in their hands nearly as much. He got to the free throw line 11 times, struggled from the 3 point line in this game, but somebody that has been relatively strong as an outside shooter, really having a bounce back year efficiency wise. For context, last year, Devin Booker averaged 25.6 points, 7.1 assists, 4.1 rebounds, and he was turning the ball over 2.9 times while shooting 46, 33, 89 for a true shooting that was 58.9. For context, by the way, that was his lowest for a couple of seasons. Then this season, 31 points per game, which is a career high, 7 assists, which is still in the realm of where he was last year, which he was basically full time point guard last season as well. 3.9 rebounds. Turning the ball over a little bit more this season, but the usage is so much higher without Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal on the floor. So I think once Jalen Green gets into the lineup and get Dylan Brooks lit back and that usage rate kind of normalizes a bit, I think the turnovers will come down. And then he's shooting 51, 46, 51, 43, 86 so far this season. So the efficiency tick is so much higher than it was last year. You can see that he's just playing with a lot more freedom. He's playing with a lot more control. I think he's playing with a certain level of like joy again. I hate using that word because it's something that you can't really quantify, but you can tell that he's just being able to play his brand of basketball again as this go-to shot creator, scorer. He has the ability to be a playmaker for others in terms of setting others up. Again, averaging, just over 7 assists per game this season. Someone who I think is playing himself back into that conversation of being a top 3 to 5 shooting guard in the NBA. These last couple of seasons, Devin Booker's name has really been sullied. Now, part of that is because of the ascension of guys like Anthony Edwards, and of course, Donovan Mitchell was a mainstay at the 2 guard position. But Devin Booker, once upon a time, was discussed as like easily the top shooting guard in the NBA just 2 or 3 years ago. And it feels like his name kind of is catapulted from the top of that list all the way, down to like middle of the pack, if not, some maybe have him staring just outside of the top 5. But this is a guy who's still a premier talent in the NBA. And I also love that he spoke after the game against the Warriors. Right? It was either after or um it was it was actually after the Golden State Warriors game. He was talking about wanting to have real longevity with the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, all the moving parts, all the discussions about the potential of Devin Booker being a disgruntled star that wants out to play for a championship caliber team, blah, 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 all of those things that he says. I was adopted as an 18-year-old coming in. I was embraced through tough times all the way to making a finals run. The city watched me grow up. I enjoyed growing up in the city. I'm sure Steph could say a lot of similar things about this area. I don't think he's going anywhere talking about Steph Curry, and I don't think I am either. It's talking about embracing the role as a leader and spokesperson for their team, somebody who has to step up and really take that number one role. Again, he's played in the locker room with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Chris Paul. So he's in the scenarios where this team has been at their most winningest. he's been somebody who kind of gets to be the quiet superstar that doesn't have a ton of emphasis and fingers pointing at him, and a lot of the bullets being thrown at the supporting cast around him, or some of the main spokesperson duties being taken upon by some of his veterans. But he's had to really step into that role, and he says it's a lot of pride, it's a lot of responsibility. It's something that I try to communicate to the young guys. Having those couple deep playoff runs and just getting the city to become electric is a feeling that I'm chasing and want to get back to. How the Phoenix Suns are able to get back into real championship caliber conversation is going to have a lot to do with their ability to get back into the game from a drafting perspective. Because I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to be able to make the kind of splash trade they did when they got Kevin Durant, especially somebody that they're able to get that can be on the same kind of timeline that Devin Booker is on. But they have the chance to maybe recoup and position themselves in a real way, draft capital wise. We already saw what they were able to do with the Rockets in a situation where they were able to recoup their pick back and get Kamal Maluach, who the Phoenix Suns are not playing enough for some godforsaken reason. And we'll probably talk about like rookies that deserve a little bit more tick. Derek Queen, who we didn't talk about too in depth last podcast when we were talking about Willie Green, but somebody who actually balled out in a real way in his first game, playing real minutes this season to help the Pelicans get their first win. But Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns are a team that I feel like are going to take a minute to get back to where Book was a few seasons ago. They're going to take a while, especially if Book plans on sticking around. If they're unable to flip someone like Jalon Green, this is going to be a team that's going to have to get it out the mud. They're going to have to be able to draft at a high level, and they might have to be bad for a year or two to get the kind of draft picks that they need in order to get back to that spot. But D Book himself has been a premier level scorer so far this season, and he's put himself in a good spot where I think he's going to make the All Star team again. And first of all, that's just a step in the right direction because, again, Devin Booker is somebody that I feel like people are just not as high on right now because the last 2 years have taken such a dip. And I think you could say most would agree that the fit next to Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant was always going to be under fire. There was always going to be real question marks because of the fact that all three of them could be premier ball handlers, and all three of them, mainly Book and Bradley Beal, tend to need pretty significantly high usage in order to really be effective on a night to night basis. And so now that he kind of gets back to being relatively heliocentric, he is the very center. He is the pillar that holds this Phoenix offense together. Now that he's back to his more traditional play style, it's positioned him to kind of look more like the D Book of old. And I think it's going to allow him to have a really strong bounce back season. This might not be a great overall year for the Phoenix Suns from a playoff perspective, but this is one of those seasons where just seeing your franchise star get back to being himself is a step in the right direction in a way that can help build this franchise moving forward. I think they made a really good move on the margins, trading for Mark Williams, drafted Kamal Maluach. I think they got good value in getting Dylan Brooks, and I think Jalon Green is somebody that whether he plays for this team long term or they're able to reflip in a different scenario, maybe flipping him to a team like the Brooklyn Nets who have a ton of draft capital, and then being able to get themselves back into the mix as a team that can make a couple of significant moves in the draft to add real like blue chip talent or ready made talent out of college and overseas to this team. They have like the procedure possible in front of them to get back to being like a competent team. But just seeing Devin Booker return back to not just being a happy player, but an effective and efficient player is a good starting point for this Phoenix team as they start not a rebuild, but a reset. Last but not